Okay, I think now maybe we'll go through. Yeah, there we go.
Yay.
Hooray!
Hurrah!
Hurrah! Yeah!
Yeah!
Hello!
Oh, boy, I'd give anything for that right now.
What was that?
I thought you were doing the Dean scream.
Oh my god. No, I forgot about the teen scream.
Yeah!
It's the year 2020. I've forgotten most things. Welcome, everybody, to a live recording of Guide to the Unknown.
Yes,
I'm Will.
I'm Kristen.
And we're going to be getting started in just a few minutes. But as usual, we want to give time for people to come in.
Yeah.
Get their seats, get their popcorn, get their candy. Hey,
Yeah.
JD, Drew, KB, CBFR, Andrea. Wow.
Hi, everybody.
Right off the bat.
Hello. Oh,
Yeah.
Jinx KB. You owe me a Coke. Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, send us a Coca-Cola
Yeah.
in the mail.
Dr. Peppy.
Yeah. What was it that Ryan was saying? What is the soda? Dr. Butt?
Huh?
Was that not Ryan?
What? Give me a little more context.
Maybe it was Bobby. I think somebody was telling me about a knockoff Dr. Pepper that was called Dr. Butt. I could swear. Or I dreamt it. I don't know.
I don't know.
Who knows? Hey, Mom. Hello,
Where is she?
Sarah.
There she is. Hi, Mom.
And Dana.
Yay.
This is fun.
Get those footy pajamas going. Get comfy.
Get comfy.
And let's
Comfy
talk
cozy.
about slashers.
I
Hey,
know.
Luke.
Hey, Luke. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
You said
Not
you're going to
as
put
excited
out
as I
the
am.
you put up the thing on Patreon.
Yep.
And certainly everyone here is about to find out, right?
Yep.
So I can pull the image up, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Kristen and I are, for the month of October, doing something a little different. We're going to
Yeah.
do a full month-long theme.
Yeah. And we're calling it SLASHTOBER,
Yeah.
which our friend and patron Mary Rose suggested to us.
Yes.
We liked it.
I am very excited. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I feel like it's genuinely increasing my slasher knowledge.
Yeah. I learned some new things for sure.
Yeah. Is that this? Yeah, that's that. Bam. Bam!
Yeah.
There it is. SLASHTOBER.
SLASHTOBER.
Whoa! Whoa! Whoops. Whoa!
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
William made that today.
Halloween.
Isn't it good?
Halloween is coming for us, everybody.
Halloween.
Halloween. Halloween.
Yay.
Diet Dr. Butt. That's true.
Maybe it was Bobby because he says sold at every H-E-B.
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Sold at every H-E-B
Yeah.
in Texas, which I guess is a Texas-based Piggly Wiggly. Yeah, Diet Dr. Butt.
I'm sure Ryan would like to
swears
know
it's a real
about that,
thing.
though.
Yeah.
I'll pass it on.
Yeah, please do. Pass on the butt.
Absolutely.
Extra butt.
Cool.
Cool.
Ready to rock it?
Yeah, I think so. Hey, Rachel.
Hi.
Yeah, I think we're going to get started now.
Just want to forget them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're just dismantling things.
No.
Can't be yanking wires.
Just the system.
Yeah, it's true. You're quite disruptive.
Yeah, right. An agent of chaos.
Yeah. We've got another fun, wacky intro this week for all of you
Oh
out
my
there.
God, that's right.
Yep. Another special treat, one that's
I
very appropriate.
mean, this isn't that exciting for everybody, but when I edited the show last week, the podcast, I forgot about our fun intro.
Oh, really?
Until maybe like 11 o'clock at night. No, it's in there.
Oh, okay.
But I remembered at like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, the Roger Jackson intro. So I had to like re-edit the show and re-upload it.
Oh, that's so annoying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. What are you going to do?
But yeah, hey, why don't we start off this episode of Guide to the Unknown? Once again, please feel free to share this link, spread the word.
Yeah.
Get Guide to the Unknown out there.
Yeah.
Exciting
Please
things
tell
that are
people
coming.
about it.
This episode is one of them.
Yep.
And yeah, all right, let's start the episode, everybody.
Let's do it.
Oh, but what's that, Kristen? I think I hear the phone ringing.
Oh, let's get it.
Yeah, we
Before
should
the
get-
show starts. We'll
Yeah,
be
you're
right
right.
back.
We should get that. Okay.
Hello. Are you going to listen to a podcast? Do you like scary podcasts? What's your favorite scary podcast? Well, it better be Guide to the Unknown.
Hello. Welcome to Guide to the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And welcome to SLASHTOBER, our first month-long themed series of shows to honor the spookiest season of the month and have some much-needed fun.
Yeah, slashers offer some of the most visceral horror entertainment.
Yes.
They also are, I think, a frequently studied subgenre of horror.
They certainly are.
People seem to be fascinated by the peaks and valleys. When were they popular? When were they terrible? I personally am a gigantic fan of slashers. Obviously, our fandom for the Scream franchise is
well
legendary.
documented, yes.
Yeah, well documented, storied. And Scream was fascinated with slashers itself,
Right.
as a meta horror movie.
Yes.
So I think that's why I'm going to be starting our discussion here with some of the slasher origins. And to do so, we're going to hear more from our friend Ghostface, who kicked off this very episode.
Excellent.
For it was in Scream 4, Kristen, in 2011, that the following exchange took place.
Okay.
Ghostface asking, name the movie that started the slasher craze. Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left, or Psycho? Kirby answered Psycho, only to discover that she was...
Trick question.
Yeah, tricked. None of the above.
That's pretty good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Don't pretend I haven't been practicing my Ghostface forever.
I can't pretend because I didn't know.
Oh. Peeping Tom, 1960, directed by Michael Powell. First movie to put the audience in the killer's POV. And in 2011, you and I are watching this movie in theaters together. It was the first Scream that you and I were able to see together in theaters.
Momentous.
I clocked this moment as something to drill deeper into someday.
Right. I also didn't know about this.
I
still don't.
I had never heard of the movie Peeping Tom. The notion that it is usurping Psycho as the originator of the slasher genre was news to me.
Yeah.
I knew classic stuff. I knew, classic is a funny word to use. I knew popular stuff, I should say. I did know Texas Chainsaw, obviously Friday the 13th, Halloween. But Peeping Tom was completely news to me. And it's in doing my research for this very episode, for our first entry into SLASHTOBER, that I started to look at Scream in yet another new way. It occurred to me that Scream is beginning to feel to me like its role in society is to make sense of the horror genre periodically.
Yeah.
Scream,
Yeah, it contextualizes it in new ways.
Yes. So Scream was, a big new thing that was able to go, we've had decades of these things. What are they? How are they used? What do they do to people? And then Scream 4 eventually, after, a 15-year gap, came out and was like, well, here's what's happened since the original Scream. And now they're filming, literally right now, in North Carolina, Scream 5.
Yep.
And part of me almost hopes that it's a standalone. That maybe just Ghostface reappears every 10 years to help us make sense of what's happened to the genre.
That would be great.
But for sure...
Well, would it be? I mean, it would be great. Any of it's great.
Any
I'm
of it's
thrilled.
great.
I feel similarly about Scream coming back for Scream 5 as I did when Twin Peaks came back after 25 years. It's a treat.
Yep.
I'm surprised it's even happening. I will take whatever you give me. If it's a one-season thing, of course, I'd probably like more, but I'm happy that we even got this. I didn't think it was going to happen.
Totally.
So as for the new Scream movie, I would like more because of course I do, but also if it's going to be every 10 years, it's going to be every 15 years, like cool. And
Sure.
anything you want to give me, I will eat up.
Yes, I will certainly take what I can get. And I should add that obviously, I don't know, maybe they are planning for this to be the relaunch of Scream and it'll spawn a million movies, one every year. Who knows?
I think that pretty much everything, any movie, especially one that's already established as part of a series, they're
Right.
kind of thinking out.
They're
So I
thinking
can
about
only
more.
assume that they're planning on making it a series. Also because it seems like, I don't know anything about the script or the story, none of that is out yet, but just from the casting, it seems like there's a little bit of a next generation flavor to what's happening.
Yeah, that...
So we might be following kind of a new batch of people eventually throughout sequels. So that's just my sense, is that they're building for multiples.
Yeah, that feels likely to me. But without a doubt, Scream, the franchise, has given me my starting point.
Yeah.
As a franchise that was a study in slashers, it's showing me where to go back to find the answers. But before I go back into the origin of the slasher subgenre, I want to do something we haven't done in a while. Kristen, what's your history with slashers?
Oh boy. I mean, I love slashers. One of my favorite genres in general, one of my favorite kind of horror subgenres. I've seen a whole lot of them. I don't care if they're good or bad or whatever. I really, really enjoy them.
Yeah.
I guess that's the main thing I can say about them. I really like that because they're so visceral, they kind of take you out of your head in a way, but at the same time, you're right. If you decide to kind of look at the real lifeness of it or track it as a thing in culture, there's a lot to kind of cerebralize and get into.
Oh, yeah, without
so it's kind of got both for me. It's a little mindless, a little stuff to dig into.
Yeah.
They're fun for the most part.
Are there any movies or franchises that spring to mind instantly?
I mean, Scream, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
The big ones. I mean, I can't purport to have any sort of like deep cut knowledge of
Sure.
slashers. I've seen a bunch of them, but like I love Halloween. I like Friday the 13th a lot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. This is a funny one too, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there are some horror purists out there, maybe people listening to this show, that are like, there are all of these obscure slashers that you're not even going to mention. And that may be true, but it's
Yeah.
also hard to knock the big guns, because some
Right.
of the big slashers out there, your Jason Voorheeses, your Michael Myerses,
Mm-hmm.
have really done masterful work.
Yes, they're
Yeah.
truly master strokes.
Yes.
So, what is your history with the slasher genre?
I was genuinely afraid of them when I was a kid. I think I've told this story before, but it's like a good example of how the silliness of a slasher can often be overwritten by how gruesome they are.
Yeah.
I remember being a kid, probably 10 or 11, and there was a Child's Play marathon on TV. And so I sat there and I watched all of them. I couldn't get over how colorful that franchise was and how silly it was, but
Yeah.
also just how brutal some of the kills in there are. And Chucky is just a very frightening. They managed to like,
Especially for a kid.
yeah, they managed to articulate that freckly face so that it can
Yeah.
sneer and scowl, and it just looks,
And those little hands.
yeah,
Those joints can really move.
it's disturbing.
Yes.
And right after, I think it was maybe in the middle of the third Child's Play, Dad was like, I told you to mow the lawn. Go outside, please mow the lawn.
Speaking of dad and slashers, I feel like we would be remiss not to mention the Puppy Master incident.
Oh my God.
That was repeated forever.
I forgot about that.
Yes. We were like driving around somewhere when we were growing up in Connecticut, I guess. And there was a theater marquee that had a sign for the Puppet Master. And Will told our dad that he wanted to go see that. He wanted to go see the Puppy Master.
Yep.
And our dad thought that was so funny. And he told that story a million times because it is a very good story.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's
What
cute.
movie would Puppy
Puppy
Masters
Master.
be?
I don't know.
You know? And
Did you see the Puppet Master remake?
no.
Me neither.
Puppet Master and Demonic Toys are a big blank spot for me.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, they're like a more extreme Child's Play where I just imagine
And
it's all
I-
like kid sound effects and the sound of turning a Jack in the Box. Just, yeah.
I only recently came to Child's Play anyway, so
Yeah.
it's not super surprising I'm not all up on Puppet Master. But I think I heard that the Puppet Master remake was good.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
seriously, I
don't
think
know.
it was like some sort of, and I'm going to say it in a way that sounds annoying, but I think I heard it was good. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
It's
heard
like a
that
self-aware sort of thing going on.
that would make sense.
Which, you know, obviously we both love in Scream, can go very wrong sometimes.
sure.
So people, when you describe things that way, I'm not necessarily right off the bat like, well, that sounds good. I think it's
know.
more a rarity that Scream is so awesome. But I think that Puppet Master was supposed to be good.
Okay. I know that Puppet Master at a certain point was like conflated with Nazi horror. So it's like
Oh, yeah.
maybe the toys are fighting Nazis or they were made by Nazis.
Oh,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't
You're
know.
right. You're
Yeah.
right.
But so Dad told me to go out to mow the lawn after I had just watched a bunch of Child's Play movies, and the blades of the lawnmower got all stuck. The grass was too long. I waited too long, so I had to flip the mower over and reach my hand into the blade to pull clumps of grass out of it. And I imagined Chucky running up to the mower and yanking the starter, and I just got out of there. I think I left the mower
funny.
upside down and just went inside. I couldn't handle it.
That sounds right.
It was
It's
too
funny,
much.
I don't really remember slashers or any of this stuff scaring me as a kid.
It stressed me
I don't
out.
know
I was
why.
fascinated by it.
Yeah, I always watch them.
Yeah.
I know gore, I've always been like, ugh. But I don't really have any memories of any movies like really scaring me. And I did watch a lot of scary movies. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Wikipedia has a definition for slasher movies, which I found pretty interesting. They say slasher films typically adhere to a specific formula. A past wrongful action causes severe trauma that is reinforced by a commemoration of anniversary that reactivates or re-inspires the killer. Built around stalk and murder sequences, the films draw upon the audience's feelings of catharsis, recreation, and displacement as related to pleasure. Now, I think it's so funny that they were able to define
Are
a
you
slasher.
paraphrasing pleasure, or
Oh,
are you just
yeah.
saying it funny? Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
It's so funny to me that they were able to define slashers so directly,
Right.
because it's very, very accurate for a number of different scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the anniversary thing isn't always there in slashers, but it
Not-
often is.
Well, they make a point of saying that it's like either about the anniversary or something that reactivates or re-inspires the killer.
Yeah.
So even that could be as something as simple as Halloween. Every Halloween, Michael Myers is compelled to go out and kill again. Or Norman Bates peeked through the little peephole at Marion Crane
Right.
taking a shower, and his
Yeah.
killer drive
Yeah,
was
the trigger.
reignited. You know, like, so there's an activation there. But at its core, one thing that I really want to point out in this is that the slasher origins and much of slashers overall, usually it's about a human being with a psychological motive. And I don't think I ever would have put that fine a point on it, particularly in a world where, you know, is Michael Myers a member of the cult the Thorn? Is Jason Voorhees undead and Freddy Krueger is a dream demon? They're not human,
Right.
but they are slashers. But certainly here at the beginning, the point is, you know, we had all of these Universal monster movies where you
Yeah.
could see Dracula turn into a bat or Frankenstein's monster be brought to life with electricity. It didn't give quite the same scare as just
A person.
a person with a warped mind who's gonna kill you. So it's funny, a lot of my research here, like Wikipedia will also point out that some of the origin of slashers may go back to ancient Rome,
Okay.
where people got entertainment from violence. And they're referring to the Roman Colosseum, where
Yeah. Yeah.
people come to see them, and they would
course.
release lions that would, you know, devour people whole in front of an audience.
Yeah, you can draw a line.
Yeah, I think you can. My gut instinct was that's a very lofty diagnosis.
I don't know that it is that lofty, because it's true. At its basis, it is entertainment from violence.
Entertainment from
So,
violence is
yeah.
the point, yes. Fast forward to the ways that we manage to use performance to tell fictionalized versions of that sort of violence. So they call out the theater of the great puppet in France, La Théâtre des Grands Guignols. Grand Guignol being a sort of genre unto itself.
Yep.
Later on. It was a theater in Paris from 1897 to 1962, and it focused on horror shows. They would stage plays where people would, you know, turn on each other and get killed. There's an image of somebody who their shirt is covered in blood. So they really did get into visceral, frightening murder
Yeah.
horror in live theater. And this is, you know, at the turn of the century, just before film becomes increasingly popular and
Right.
accessible.
Precursor to Evil Dead the musical.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. And then once we started making movies, we started making horror movies.
Yeah.
Like right away. But the slasher thing is kind of interesting. Wikipedia calls out a few standouts. They call out a movie called The Spiral Staircase from 1946, which stars Ethel Barrymore,
Okay.
the great aunt of Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
She's one of the protagonists in this movie where a serial killer in black gloves stalks and kills. So Drew Barrymore, later of Scream fame,
Yeah.
in the iconic opening scene, it runs in the family.
Totally.
Her great aunt Ethel Barrymore was in a proto slasher way
That's
back
cool.
in the 40s.
That's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was around this time, around the early 20th century, that crime writers found their books being adapted into movies. And I've always felt that there is this whole true crime boom, particularly in the last decade, I have endlessly looked at it with curiosity because it's very similar to enjoying a slasher to me. And I think the same people that derive entertainment or fascination from true crime, frequently I see those same people poo-poo a Texas Chainsaw or a Halloween.
I feel like there's a ton of overlap.
There's a ton. There's undeniably a ton. But I also think that it is similarly undeniable that slashers as a genre have usually been derided, mocked, and put down. And true crime, I think, in recent years has become a perfectly acceptable form of entertainment for a lot of people. To me, it's about how you do it. We're talking about real people's lives, but the point remains.
Yeah.
However, around the early 20th century, this was already happening. Crime writers found their stories being made into movies. Those movies were exaggerated then to derive some thrill out of crime.
They got slashy.
Out of murder. They got slashy. So we get movies like a film called 13 Women, which was about a sorority being stalked by a killer who is crossing out their yearbook photos.
I love a little shtick like that.
So do I.
Yeah.
They also go ahead and they call out, and then there were none, which people are dropping dead according to a nursery rhyme.
Right. I love that bit of business that the killer is going by.
There's a game afoot.
Yeah.
Oddly, later on, I would associate games in movies with James Wan in The Conjuring, using the clapping game.
Right.
To invite ghosts to do things. But no, it's very true that serial killers have their totems and they have their methodologies, and that's present in crime writing and frequently present in slasher stories. All right, let's now talk about Peeping Tom.
Yeah.
So this is 1960. As Ghostface said, it was popularized. It was the movie above even Psycho that popularized the slasher craze. And Ghostface refers to it as the first movie to put the audience in the killer's POV.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, what did I do? I watched Peeping Tom.
Okay.
I am overjoyed that we have ourselves a show where this is some sort of a creative intellectual pursuit for me to pop on Peeping Tom.
Yeah.
I, at one point, had considered doing a mini-series where I just watch every movie referenced by Scream.
Yep.
To sort of cross-reference their inspirations and learn. Really learn, what is the history here? What is the history that Scream observed?
Yeah.
So this is really a taste of that for me. I got to watch Peeping Tom. And interestingly, Peeping Tom, Ghostface said this as well, 1960. What else happened in 1960? It's the same year Psycho was released. In 1960...
So just squeaked it out?
Yes. In 1960, Peeping Tom came out in April, whereas Psycho didn't come out until June at the earliest because of different screenings.
That's so close.
So close, so similar.
Yeah.
Something I'm going to do here, I'm going to talk about Peeping Tom for a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to try not to really spoil it. This movie is 60 years old, and I recommend people go watch it. It is very Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
Michael Powell, who directed it, worked with Hitchcock. And you watch this movie, and I'm telling you, you can feel Hitchcock's DNA in this movie.
You can feel the hitch.
You definitely can feel the hitch. The movie is primarily about a man named Mark Lewis. And the opening shots of this film are of a camera, of an old 1960s, cranking video camera. It's got 3 lenses on the front, and our camera, the movie POV camera, is pushing into the lenses. The next thing we see is from the point of view of that camera itself, as our main character, Mark Lewis, walks down the street and hires a lady.
Okay.
And takes her to a room and will eventually kill her. This is very similar to the opening of Halloween, 1978, where Michael Myers, we view the opening of that movie through his eyes as he walks through the house and kills his older sister. It is the same. It is here in 1960, 2 months before Psycho.
Cool.
Within this movie, we see that Mark Lewis is a photographer on movie sets. He also does gentlemen's magazines.
Sure.
But don't get me wrong, this Mark Lewis is no gentleman.
This movie sounds racy for 1960.
Insanely racy, Kristen.
I'm surprised.
Insanely racy.
Yeah.
This movie and Psycho both would go on to receive a ton of backlash.
Yeah.
They were both called sleazy.
Right, but it sounds. I mean, I haven't seen it, but like Psycho sounds. I mean, I've seen Psycho.
Psycho is arguably quaint by this.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds
definition.
kind of tame next to
Yes,
this.
it's true. Now, Psycho would go on to be nominated for Academy Awards.
Yeah, right.
And Peeping Tom was largely ripped apart and left in the gutter. I think the modern mindset for people who are in the know, evidently now I'm one of them, it is respected, but it is forgotten.
Huh.
Certainly by comparison to Psycho.
Do you know how Alfred Hitchcock felt about it? About his protege coming out with this and like kind of beating him to the punch a little bit?
Interesting.
And being so similar?
I part of me thinks I read something that said Hitchcock liked it.
Oh, okay. That's good.
I don't want to go on the record with
Sporting.
that. Yeah, it is sporting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one of the things I did read was that Alfred Hitchcock may have changed some of his release plans after seeing what happened in the backlash to Peeping Tom.
Interesting.
He did not hold advanced screenings for Psycho, and some theorize it's because word had started to come out about Peeping Tom from an advanced screening
Okay.
that it was horrible.
Yeah.
And so he, I think, avoided doing that himself. So Mark Lewis is a photographer, and eventually it is revealed that his father, Norman Bates had his issues with his mother, Mark Lewis has issues with his father. Mark Lewis's father was a psychiatrist who studied fear, and he would film his son,
Oh, boy.
and he would scare him. He would throw a lizard in the kid's bed in the middle of the night to wake him up and then film his face. He filmed his son saying goodbye to his mother on her deathbed, and he filmed his son when he met her replacement. He mentally tortured his son, and now grown-up Mark Lewis views the entire world through a camera.
Yeah.
He films every single thing that he does. There's a dose of Francis Dollarhide to this character, I think. The aspect of Francis Dollarhide from Red Dragon, another Hannibal Lecter story, where he is obsessed with home movies
Right.
of women and shoots his own and screens them in front of a blind woman who can't see what he's watching. Kristen, that happens here
Oh.
in 1960s Peeping Tom. It happens in this movie.
Wow.
There, he hears the voice of his father, disembodied, similar to Norman Bates speaking to Mother, similar to Pamela Voorhees in Friday the 13th, hearing Jason urge her to kill. It all takes place largely on movie sets. So you see characters that are themselves performers.
Like Psycho
Actors-
2.
Sure, like Psycho 2, or like Scream.
Yes.
A lot of it is arguably self-reflective and meta. This character, Mark Lewis, is filming all the time because while he works on movie sets, he's making a documentary of his own.
Oh, wow.
How appropriate for it to be the slasher mentioned in Scream 4,
Yeah.
where the villains
Right.
are filming
They're
everything
doing the
that
same
goes
thing.
on.
Yeah, they have like head cam, like GoPros on.
Yes. It was a very rewarding experience,
Cool.
Kristen, to watch this movie.
It sounds good. I want
was-
to watch it.
It was really fascinating. The killer has a sort of modus operandi, which is slowly revealed over the course of the movie and is very satisfying to find out what he is up to in full. He uses his camera as a murder weapon itself. The tripod, one of the legs, he uses as a murder weapon. It's all about his psychological state, and he seems puzzled about it himself. He speaks to a psychiatrist at one point.
Like
seems
Norman Bates,
curious.
at least in the book, Psycho.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He, at one point, the police come around to investigate the murders, and he immediately grabs his camera and starts filming. He just can't resist being part of it. Here's a quote that I want to read from the movie, which I thought was really interesting and speaks more to the slasher notion at play. Because, truthfully, when you do look back at this movie, it does have a lot of the slasher tropes here. So the main character, Mark Lewis, is speaking to somebody who's his victim. She doesn't know she's his victim yet. He's playing it cool. She needs help getting into character for a scene. He's filming her and she's supposed to look scared.
Oh, boy.
So here's what
He
he
knows
says.
how to do this.
Imagine a person coming toward you who wants to kill you, regardless of consequences. She asks, a madman? And that's also how she pronounces it.
Uh-huh.
A madman?
A madman?
Yes, but he knows it, and you don't. And just to kill you isn't enough for him. And I really think some of the thrill you get from this movie is about being in the killer's shoes.
Yeah, and knowing what's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, I could completely see that.
Yes. And so that is what really makes it different from, you'll get somewhat into Halloween, which, believe it or not, I am about to hand off very soon. But like at a certain point, I think we started to side a lot with the final girl trope.
Yeah.
Who is our heroine? Who is our hero? But even still, I think a lot of audiences, when they watch a slasher, even if Jason Voorhees isn't on screen all the time, the fact that we know he's out there
Yeah.
and that these characters have no shot, we are effectively still seeing this from their perspective.
Yes.
So obviously Peeping Tom came out, as I said, it was sort of ripped apart. Psycho would come out within a couple of months, and there's nothing I can say that has not already been said about Psycho. It was, even though it was similarly derided, it was also acclaimed.
Yeah.
And insanely influential. And like a lot of influential movies, it resulted in a gigantic pop of activity. The success of Psycho, the Academy Awards nominated to Psycho, influenced people like, big name performers to start dabbling in horror. The genre of horror suddenly had a claim to it.
Yeah, it was legitimized.
Absolutely. And so here's some of the aftermath of these two original slashers. There were a lot of movies like Straight Jacket or Berserk, both of which obviously play on the notion of madness or insanity. But to me, this is really more about evolution. This is evolution of horror. Films, again, had given us monsters. They'd given us the Wolfman. But now we were getting human beings like this Mark Lewis or Norman Bates. Mark Lewis, by the way, is
The human monster.
The human monster. Mark Lewis as a name is also mundane.
Yeah.
Arguably, so was Norman Bates at one time.
Oh, yeah, totally. It became a thing.
Yes, but Norman Bates carries so much weight. And if I say Mark Lewis to you, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Nothing. It means nothing. It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And we started getting splatter films and giallo films. These were Italian movies which like to mix eroticism with the slasher. But that really took off.
Yeah.
It really popped. It was very like pulpy sort of stories. Nobody was really doing it with the sort of import that came with Peeping Tom or Psycho, which I think is important. However, in the 70s, we would get a lot of movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas,
Yeah.
which was a slasher focused on a sorority on a holiday. So again, fitting that vibe of it's an anniversary-ish thing. Every Christmas, presumably, this may have happened. The killer calls and harasses the girls of the sorority, one of whom is Margot Kidder. Another person in the movie, I think he plays a cop in it, is Jonathan Saxon, who I think was in Halloween, I want to say.
I don't know.
Maybe Friday, maybe A Nightmare on Elm Street.
The name is ringing a bell, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. But the template to me was like really getting sort of like tightened up.
Yeah.
Now we're going to we know our sort of basic format, but it's time for
We know
somebody
it works.
It's time for somebody to take that ball and really carry it. Something big needs to happen again. Because between Texas Chainsaw, Black Christmas, and Peeping Tom and Psycho, it had been 14 years.
Right.
And they were sort of just spinning their wheels.
Yeah, they like happened, but there wasn't really a big boom.
There wasn't
that
a
kind
big
of
important one. And not another big influencer.
Right.
One last notable thing to say about this era. This was also, the 70s was also the era of Zodiac and Ted Bundy
Yeah.
and Son of Sam and all of these real life killers who seemed at that time ripped from the movies. There was not a lot of discernible difference between a Ted Bundy and a Norman Bates.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. And so is it art imitating life or vice versa? But either way, the popularity continued.
That's right. And then there was another big boom.
Yes.
That we'll talk about after we tell you about ourselves.
Yes.
If you are listening to this and enjoying it, we're very happy about that. And we would like to invite you to follow us online. You can find Guide to the Unknown everywhere at GTTU Pod. You can join our Facebook group, the Guide to the Unknown Secret Society, by searching that in Facebook. And we would also love it if you came over and hung out with us and a whole bunch of people over at patreon.com/GTTU Pod, where if you donate $4 or more per month, you get a bonus episode of the podcast every month on the 13th, as well as a live monthly planning session where Will and I open up our spreadsheet, talk to everybody live in the chat, and plan out the next month of shows. So everybody who's over on patreon.com/GTTUpod has known that SLASHTOBER was coming for the last month, and they influenced it coming together. Mary Rose, who's one of our patrons, came up with the name. So we would love to have you over there, and we also really, really appreciate the support. So definitely go check out our Patreon.
Yeah. Guide to the Unknown, honestly, more and more, it's becoming just a repository for new knowledge, particularly in this episode, and hopefully for the rest of SLASHTOBER. I've always had a major curiosity about what makes these things tick behind the scenes. Where did they come from? Where might they go in the future? Because these are all lessons learned that we could apply in making things.
Yes.
Kristen and I are big makers here. And it is on that tip that I also want to alert you all that Blair Witch, the new immersive hunt-a-killer experience, is coming. Many people have already ordered it. If you go to huntakiller.com/Blair Witch, keep an eye out for your opportunity to order some boxes. I've already seen it arriving in some people's hands.
Oh, cool.
Some people have already
That's awesome.
received theirs.
So to be clear, William has co-written this story that lives in the Blair Witch universe. This is totally all official stuff, but it's a game that you can play. It's almost like you get to play a new movie.
Right. Yes, a woman is looking for her missing child in Burkittsville, Maryland. Can you help her?
Right.
What do you think? Can you?
I bet you can. So it's both physical items. There's some online components. It's very, very cool. And our very own Will Rogers wrote it.
Yeah, well, partially
wrote it.
Partially
Co-wrote it.
Along with Eleanor Haney, Travis Madden. Definitely check it out. huntakiller.com/Blair Witch. This is not an advertisement from the company.
No.
They just pay me because I work for them. So they pay my mortgage. But I'm very excited about this.
Yeah,
I'm like really personally excited about this, and I just hope you all like it.
So one of our listeners, Steffi, posted in that Guide to the Unknown group in Facebook today and said that she is either going back and listening for the first time or re-listening to old episodes. And we have an episode about the Blair Witch, and she said it's so cool to hear you guys talking about it, and you're obviously like so enthusiastic about it. You both love it so much, and now Will is working on it. And so to listen to that segment with today's knowledge of Will working on it is so cool.
It's pretty unreal. No one knows the future. I never could have anticipated this.
It's awesome. That was a couple years ago that we did that episode, and this wasn't even in the works.
Episode 51? I think
don't
it was
know.
episode 51. But yeah, we did War of the Worlds and Blair Witch, which was a great double feature.
Yeah.
But yeah, huntakiller.com/Blair Witch. There's also, if you love Guide to the Unknown, and I hope you do, there's some Guide to the Unknown flavor hidden somewhere around there. You might come across it. You also might not. But I did some scripting, and I did some directing and some editing, and you might get some Guide to the Unknown flavor in there somewhere. So go poking around, go digging. There's the game itself, and then there's also stuff I hid in there that nobody will necessarily notice, but maybe you will.
That's awesome.
huntakiller.com/Blair Witch.
That's right. All right. So now let's talk about what is known as the golden age of slashers. This is recognized as being from 1978 to 1984, and there were over 100 slashers released in those 6 years.
Wow.
Obviously not all like acclaimed or famous. Most of them aren't, but the studios were pumping them out because they were popular, so they were kind of striking while the iron was hot. What ushered this in? Halloween, the movie Halloween by John Carpenter. So that basically set the standard when it came out in 1978 for a lot of slashers to do sort of a cut and paste method of storyboarding. There's an anonymous bad guy stalking teenagers mostly. And also it set this template for the virgin making it to the end of the movie, the virgin being the final girl, and the people who are having sex, or just sexual people who have that kind of like vibe and air and jokiness, being killed. So it set up a trope of virgin equals make it, sex equals killed. Although John Carpenter said that wasn't intentional in Halloween, but everybody kind of took it and ran with it.
Well, it's
ran with it.
because it doesn't even necessarily need to be intentional. It's evident.
Yeah,
it's what
there.
happens in the movie.
Yeah.
One thing that Laurie Strode does break a scream rule in the movie, though. She smokes a joint.
That's right. So
with
she's
Annie
not
in the car.
completely innocent. That's right.
But she was also the first, so.
And I guess it's not that big a deal.
Sure.
I mean, I guess back then it was a little more of a big deal, obviously. But
Yeah.
still.
Oh, it's still a big deal today.
No, I know. But, like,
Yeah.
it's legal a million places
Yes.
today. Then it wasn't. But even so, I feel like even back in the 70s, on the scale of bad and scary things, it was almost expected that teenagers are going to, like, smoke a joint at some point.
Yeah, true.
You know, it's a little bit less looming and scary than if they have sex and what that means and how
Right.
that can be threatening, especially for girls being sexual. That's, like, threatening in some way. So I feel like on the scale of virginal activity, it's only like a little bit above it.
Yeah, right.
So obviously Halloween is huge and iconic now, but I didn't know this at all. All the major studios passed on it when it was first shopped around. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
It was shopped around without music. That's not necessarily the reason that it got passed on, but the music is great.
Yeah.
I feel like it adds something to it that's really significant. So
if you've
I bet
ever
it played
seen a
some
rough
role.
cut of something or heard a rough cut of something, it can be brutal. You have to have imagination while you're watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the music for Halloween is so like moody.
Yeah.
They put it in places. And it's mostly the same batch of notes over and over again, at least that initial like just solo piano kind of part that you can think of. But even that is just, they add it in places sometimes where it like really makes a big impact. Like it'll just be somebody walking down the street, but that music comes in.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, even though it's daytime, it's ominous and dangerous.
1,000%.
So I can see how if you took that out, it has a little bit less of an impact.
You're just left with scenes of Jamie Lee Curtis walking down
just
the
walking,
sidewalk.
holding books.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So he ended up adding in the music himself, and he distributed it locally with some small company in just 4 Kansas City theaters at first. And it was a big hit throughout those 4 locations. And the word of mouth made it snowball to the point that it got selected to screen at the Chicago Film Festival. And that's a big deal. And once it went there, a lot of people didn't like it, but some critics loved it and really lauded it. So it ended up becoming distributed worldwide, and it became this like really, it became the most profitable indie film ever until it was unseated inevitably by Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, that's so funny.
I know. I had no idea about the beginnings for Halloween like that. I thought it was made like any other studio film because it's really one of my favorite movies. I remember last year we did like a listener questions episode where we listed our top 5 favorite horror movies, and it was in there for me. I love Halloween.
Yeah, it really, to me, is like sort of like a gold standard of what this genre can be.
It completely is, and obviously a lot of other people felt that way because it got copied and copied and copied, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing.
I know so many people that just call it boring.
I think it's so
To me,
good.
I love the pace of it. I love, these are just people that don't know what they're up against.
I like a lot of things that people think are boring.
Yeah,
So,
same.
I just love it. I think it's so good.
Even on the copycat tip, something that I'm low-key fascinated by, 1960 Psycho, boom, a huge burst of imitators.
Yeah.
It takes almost 18 years to get to Halloween. Boom, huge burst of imitators.
Yep.
It takes almost another 20 years to get to Scream. Boom, more imitators. Like every 20 years, somebody comes along and evolves it more. They tighten it up, or they have something new to say that's real.
I know.
That makes everyone take note.
And so that would make us like about due just about now. I wonder if it's not the same. It's not. No, I was going to say, I feel like Get Out was a little bit of a turning point in horror most recently. It's not a slasher, though. But we're talking about slashers like 20 years, boom, and there hasn't been one. What if Scream 5 does something?
That would be wonderful.
It'd be really cool.
I would love nothing more than for Scream 5 to come out and really have something they're trying to say.
Yeah.
To me, those movies always end up having something to say. They have a point. They're not just a movie.
I know, and I think that the chances are pretty good. The people who are making it are interesting.
I really did love Ready or
creatives.
Not.
I did too.
Yeah.
So it's not totally impossible. So I wanted to see what critics said about it at the time. I was just curious about this big boom and it being kind of like critically well received for something that is like a slasher and doesn't have, even though it's 20 years later, almost 20 years later, it still doesn't have like the seriousness of Psycho. There's like a respectability to Alfred Hitchcock as like, you know, an auteur and everything. And John Carpenter isn't the same way. So I was interested in what the critics said about
There's
it.
a scene in Halloween where his cigarette smoke billows into the
Yeah,
frame.
totally.
Yeah.
So here's what they said, and I included these two because they play into things a little bit later and things take a turn. We're going to talk about what Siskel and Ebert separately said about it. This is before they kind of teamed up. Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune, and they're both from Chicago, which is where the film festival was, so I thought that'd be interesting, gave the film 3.5 stars out of 4 and calls it, quote, a beautifully made thriller that, quote, works because its director Carpenter knows how to shock while making us smile. He repeatedly sets up anticipation of a shock and delays that shock for varying lengths of time. The tension is considerable. More than once during the movie, I looked around just to make sure that no one weird was sitting behind me. Pretty good. Roger Ebert also liked it, which is kind of surprising because he was like a vocal hater of slashers. But he said it was, quote, a visceral experience. We aren't seeing the movie. We're having it happen to us. It's frightening. Maybe you don't like movies that are really scary, then don't see this one. And then Ebert also selected it as one of his top 10 films of 1978, which is especially surprising considering what comes later from Siskel and Ebert about horror movies. So there were plenty of negative criticisms, but also a fair amount of people who were impressed by the camera work, the music, and the lack of gore. And I hadn't thought about it before, but I wonder if that's part of the reason I love it, because I don't love gore.
Yeah.
And it really has like almost nothing. So I wonder if I don't have that same kind of tension of like, okay, I'm gonna have to like squint my eyes soon so I don't see like this really disgusting thing, and I can just purely enjoy the movie's tension.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, to me, too, because the thing that immediately makes me think of when we did our Scream 4 commentary, I feel like you called out the viciousness of one of the kills in that movie as a positive.
I don't remember.
Olivia,
but it could be.
she's killed in the bedroom and her, like,
Oh, yeah, I know.
blood's
I
all
know.
over the walls, and you seem to really like that.
Yeah, I do.
Nothing's in motion in that, though. Ghostface, when he kills, we see some brutality.
Yeah.
But then everything after that is very stationary.
Yeah. No, I
Which
do
might make a
really love
difference
that.
to you.
I guess I don't know. Some gore, you know what? I think some gore is gross to me and some isn't. It's not. It's just a little literal grossness where I'm
Right.
like, ugh, that I don't like gore. I don't mind. I watch a million things that have gore.
It might also be about the language of a movie, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
Halloween sets its own language in place that apparently works for you.
Yeah.
And maybe there are a lot of movies when they revel in showing you gross stuff, I tune out because it makes me feel like their priority is odd.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like their priority was in the grossness itself.
Yeah, like I really, besides like Saw, just because I like the story and then I just hang with it, I like don't like torture porn stuff. Like
Sure.
there are a lot of movies that I know are they get really good reviews or they got really good reviews, but I haven't seen because I'm just like, ugh, I want to see that. Like Audition
Yeah,
or whatever.
same.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't like gore, but I don't mind it, and I guess sometimes I do, because you're right. I do think that scene in Scream is really like, whoa. It's also partially because I'm like, this is like almost a different kind of killer. You're seeing a little bit of that killer's personality
Yeah.
in that. Like Ghostface kills other people, but it's always like, not always, but like often kind of stayed in a way. And then that scene with Olivia, there's like disembowelment, like stabbing through the hand, all this stuff that I feel is showing you that like this is a different thing we're kind of dealing with right now.
It's telling you about the person that's under that mask.
Yeah.
It's characterization, which it should be.
Right.
And,
So
like,
maybe that's kind of what I respond to about that. Because it's not just the slash fest where I'm like, yeah,
Right.
get it. It's like, oh, what does this mean?
Yeah, a kill scene in a slasher movie is similar to how an action scene should work, or to honestly how like a sex scene should sometimes work, where it's like it's about the way that these characters go about performing this action.
Yeah.
Their character still needs to be a part of what they are doing.
Right.
And so I think in Scream 4, part of it was they wanted to up the viciousness because it's 2011 now.
Yeah.
But I also do think that for me, it did set a tone of like, these kids are particularly brutal.
Yeah, exactly.
And sociopathic.
They're like frenetic
They're frenetic.
in a way
yeah.
that the other killers we've seen in Scream haven't been. So
Right.
yeah, it was a little bit of a look at what kind of killer we're dealing
Yes.
with, I think. Okay, so here are some others that happened during this 1978 to 84 boom. There are lots and lots of lesser knowns, but kind of like what we talked about in the beginning, I'm going to be shouting out some of the big guys because it's interesting to me how all this goes down and how they become the big guys. But I'm
Yeah.
sure there are a lot of other slashers I'm not going to talk about that are like really cool or fun or whatever. The next year, When a Stranger Calls was a relatively big hit, and we actually did a segment on this. You did it in episode 57. So you might know about this. It stars Carol Kane as a babysitter who gets threatening calls from inside the house.
What?
So that was kind of the first post-Halloween slasher movie that like was sort of a hit. Then things take sort of an interesting turn just culturally the next year in 1980. Reagan becomes president, and there's a wave of new concern about violence in film, partially in response to these slashers being popular Halloween, also because he was a mega conservative, and conservatives, you know, get up in arms about these sorts of things, so his conservative cronies are stirring stuff up about it. So slashers, which were arguably at their most popular at this time, 2 years post-Halloween, also become politicized. This is the same year, too, that Friday the 13th comes out, introducing us to Jason, obviously, and he's the first... Oh, no, you're right.
I mean, it kind of does. They
You're
talk about him.
You're correct. You're right. Never mind. That was a little incorrect editorializing on my part.
Yeah.
But Friday the 13th certainly does come out.
Name the killer in Friday the 13th. Jason!
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer. Okay. So...
Now I want to watch that again.
I know, it's so good.
It's
we should mention, because we're talking about it so much, we have commentaries for all 4 Scream movies over on patreon.com/GTTUpod. So what you can do is, like, you put on this commentary, there's audio and video versions, and then we tell you when to press play on your copy of Scream, and it's Will and I talking like it's a DVD commentary for Scream about the movie, about our thoughts about it, for all 4 of the Scream movies. So
super fun.
I guess we'll save reciting Scream lines for that, probably.
I may not have seen any of them since we did our...
I don't think I have either.
Yeah.
So anyway, Friday the 13th. It did really well, but it was less well received by critics than Halloween. Siskel and Ebert, who surprisingly liked Halloween, hated Friday the 13th. Siskel went really hard on it. He called the director/producer Sean C. Cunningham, quote, one of the most despicable creatures ever to infest the movie business.
Whoa!
And he spoiled the third act reveal in the third paragraph of his review, saying, "It has been suggested to me that a great way to keep people from seeing a truly awful movie is to tell them the ending." And then he told the ending.
What?
He encouraged readers to write letters of complaint to the company that owned Paramount at the time, and also to Betsy Palmer, who's in the movie. And I want to mention also, we talked specifically about Betsy Palmer, who plays Pamela Voorhees in episode 6 of Guides to the Unknown.
Wow.
So he went to town on it.
Siskel.
I know, he hated it. So Friday the 13th was a turning point, even though it wasn't as huge as Halloween.
Yeah.
It basically set a new bar for what was allowed in R-rated movies as far as gore, and people really criticized the MPAA about it. Now, whatever your opinion is about the movie, you can't deny that it's influential, even though it looks like no biggie now, that gore. But that was like, we're allowing this?
Right.
Okay, the floodgates are open. So the next year in 1981, slashers didn't do quite as well, but it's not necessarily the end of the boom. It kind of signals a little bit of a decline, though. Sequels for Halloween and Friday the 13th both came out that year, and both made around half as much as the originals did. But studios were still pumping out slashers, hoping that they're going to find the next big hit, the next Halloween, the next Friday the 13th. And I thought this was very interesting. It's also just a cultural thing that affected the way this boom worked. The next big hit could have been My Bloody Valentine. Paramount thought that it was going to be. But amid conservative pressure about violence in movies from the conservatives, oops, I said conservative pressure, coupled with the death of John Lennon, because it was so disturbing worldwide
Mark
that
David
this
Chapman.
first of all, musical icon, but also kind of like symbol of peace, was killed violently. They decided to heavily edit the movie and kind of turn down some of the gore. And it's still like a fairly gory movie,
Sure.
but I guess they were going to be going harder with it, and they thought that was what audiences were into. Like Friday the 13th did well. It was the goriest wide release movie really to that point, and so they were going to maybe turn up the volume a little bit, and they ended up turning it down, and it flopped. It could have been because of that, or maybe it was just because people weren't into it. Who knows?
Yeah.
The next year in 1982, following that kind of flop, studios started going direct to video with slashers. They were still making them, but they were spending less money on them because they were making less money. So now the horror movie section at the video store starts to become a real thing and a place that you could find slashers that you wouldn't know about otherwise, which I love the idea of. That must have been so exciting to be like a hardcore horror slasher fan, and now you can find new stuff directly.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure there are people
for the first time ever.
Right. Like I'm sure there are people who had a little bit of, for lack of a better term, because I bet I would feel this way, snobbishness about it, where it's like, well, why wasn't this in theaters? It's probably not that good. But there are also people who are just like voracious and want to absorb all of it. And then it's like really awesome that you can just go across the street and get it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't all tapes, though. They were still making movies that went to theater, such as Friday the 13th Part 3, which did better than the second and knocked E.T. out of the #1 spot at the box office.
Jason knocked out E.T.?
Yes, which is very surprising to me.
Wow. Well, he got his hockey mask.
He got his hockey mask.
Part 3. So,
exactly.
yeah.
So now the icon is in place.
Yes.
And I guess it gives people something to grab onto. It's fun. It's exciting. It's a thing like Michael Myers that is now in everybody's minds. So its success still seemed like an outlier because over the next couple of years, fewer and fewer slashers were made, both to straight to video and in theaters. Until a new big boy entered the scene, just as the golden age of slashers was coming to an end in 1984. A Nightmare on Elm Street gave the genre a boost by giving slashers a supernatural twist. It was something that we haven't seen so far in this boom. Because as you said, everything was like a human, or at least the popular ones, a human doing things to other humans. This is some sort of like weird nightmare demon thing, yet it still has a lot of slasher flavor and people were way into it. So apparently Wes Craven had been developing A Nightmare on Elm Street since 1981, right in the middle of the craze. He wanted to capitalize on it when it was really hot. But like it got waylaid, things happened, and when he saw that the slasher boom was coming to an end and that people weren't going to see them as much, they weren't making them as often, he had to put some mustard on it and get it on out there. And it was a huge hit, making New Line Cinema a major company and having it nicknamed The House That Freddy Built.
That's right.
And again, I want to mention, we have a Patreon episode all about Nightmare on Elm Street. It's bonus episode number 7.
Very good.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that that's interesting as well. I don't think that I had really considered it in those terms. I also wanted to do at some point a show that I would have watched every horror movie in order, and I probably the subgenre I would have started with would have been slashers to see how they influenced each other.
Yeah.
Now knowing, and I had not known this before this episode, that they'd all been humans up until Nightmare on Elm Street, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Jason Voorhees takes a lot in the first few Friday the 13th movies, but arguably in them,
he's
still supposed to be human.
Yes.
He's still supposed to be alive. You can argue he's undead because they say he drowned as a kid.
Right.
But they never put a fine point on that. It still is a problem today. Still people go like, what is he? Because they never bothered to define it.
But we think of him as a human.
As a human up until he's killed in part 4.
At this point.
Yeah. And it's really with Freddy that they start going like, oh, they can be more. So Michael Myers is suddenly starting to become some sort of like a Celtic cult figure.
Right, in the third one.
And Jason becomes undead. But yeah, they were all human. Even Leatherface is disgusting, but he's a human.
Yeah.
Yeah, Freddy is the one that changed it.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
I know. It's really, really cool. I'm also interested that Texas Chainsaw Massacre must have done well.
Yeah.
I didn't really look into it for this, but I'm surprised it's not kind of lumped in. I know it's a few years prior to the golden age. Maybe they sort of defined the golden age from volume because so many slashers were made during that time. But, Leatherface is like kind of one of the big boys.
He really is. 1974.
Yep.
So it's 4 years before Halloween. And it fits with a lot of the tropes, obviously.
Yeah.
I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a stigma to it that it is dirty and nasty.
I don't love Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
I feel that way about it.
I think a lot of people don't like to look at it.
Yeah. I kind of feel that way about it. I mean, I've seen it a handful of times.
Sure.
But it's definitely not one of my favorites that I like go to and deliberately watch repeatedly or anything.
Yeah, it's got to me it's hard to knock the importance of a lot of these movies. So to me it's it's part of the lineage of everything.
Yeah, it completely is.
But when you watch it, to me, it's really a handful of standout moments rather than like the movie itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also, it's just a preference thing. I don't like very claustrophobic horror movies generally. Like, I don't necessarily love home invasion movies where you like can't get away from the people
Right.
who are in your house. And not Friday the 13th. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is kind of like that because even when they get away from the farm, they go talk to somebody who they think is safe and they're actually in on it.
Yeah.
Like those, I don't know. I don't like, they make me feel claustrophobic. It's the intended purpose, but I don't enjoy that sensation the way I might enjoy the tension of somebody running after somebody or walking slowly and knowing that they're going to get them.
Yeah, for sure. I get that.
I don't love it. So Nightmare on Elm Street was the last big slasher hit of that era, and direct-to-videos as well as TV really became the jam after that for a while.
Yeah, this is really, it's fun.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we are at this point where we are able to look closer at what slashers are. It's fun to drill into a subgenre.
It is.
You know?
It is. And do like a series.
I know.
Of them.
I've got some really fun ideas for the next few episodes of the month. I want to do some off the wall stuff.
Yep.
I want to get weird, but here for the very beginning of our Slashtober series, we wanted to really look at the beginning.
That's right.
So of course there's more. Of course there's more. Of course there's more that happened in the late 80s and obviously in the 90s. And I'm sure that we're going to touch on those things.
I think we have to.
But as an
we have
exploration,
to talk about the boom of Scream knockoffs.
Yeah, urban legend.
Yep.
I Know What You Did Last Summer. These things left
The
an
Friday
imprint.
the 13th remake. I know.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I've been doing a Friday the 13th rewatch.
Yes.
The entire franchise. There are a couple of entries in there I had never seen. And I am really, really enjoying myself.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, I had never, Friday the 13th, never, Jason Voorhees as an icon is interesting, but he never lived up to Michael Myers, who I always felt like
I know.
could do better.
Do you feel differently now?
I'm very impressed with the Friday the 13th movies, the vibe of them.
Yeah.
Maybe not the this is a very odd point to make, but I think it does make sense what I'm about to say. The individual movies, by and large, are not very good. However, there's still the imprint of the idea of Jason left in your mind when the movie is off that I find very interesting now.
I get that.
My vantage point of it all has shifted a lot. And also, I have finally seen Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, which is amazing.
I still have to watch it.
Genuinely really enjoyable. Evidently, Tom McLaughlin, who directed and wrote that movie, was later offered Scream because of his work in that movie, which melded comedy and horror so well. It seems that Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream, may have even been inspired by the comedy-horror hybrid of Friday the 13th Part 6 to create Scream in the first place. So really, Friday the 13th Part 6 might be the father of the thing that has, like, greatly influenced me.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
You've really got to check it out. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Especially in contrast to some of the worst Friday the 13th entries. It's like finding a bar of gold.
Yeah, I've only seen 1, 2, 3, and 10.
Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, I like a lot.
Yeah.
4, I'll accept. 5 is rough.
Okay.
6 is great.
Yeah.
And they thought that it was bad too because nobody went to go see it, but no one went to go see it because 5 was horrible.
Right.
So then they learned
It's not its fault.
They learned the wrong lesson.
Yeah.
And started making bad movies again.
Yeah.
So there you go. But yeah, slashers.
I
The
know.
beginnings of slashers from truly its nascent stages in crime stories and theater and the Roman Colosseums.
Right.
Up to the golden era?
Yes.
The golden era.
78 to 84.
Oh, my
Let's
God.
start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. I think it's from Sound of Music.
Oh. Were they talking about slasher movies?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll find another one. I think the modern era of slashers, I think they're learning really good lessons from the past. I thought Happy Death Day
Oh, yeah. No, there's some really good slashers that have come out
was
in the
outstanding.
last few years. Yeah.
Obviously, Ready or Not is arguably not a slasher.
I would call it a slasher.
It's sort of an inversion of a slasher. Where our
yes,
heroine is almost Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, but
She's
like
sort of systematically.
she is, but everybody else is the bad guy.
Yeah. Oh, undeniably.
Yeah,
Undeniably.
yeah.
But, she's the force.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess if you're going by that definition of slashers that you read at the top, you're right. It is an inversion in that way. But still, everything else, thematically, whatever,
Yeah.
it feels like a slasher.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see what comes next. And I'm really excited to see what comes next later in this month as
right.
SLASHTOBER has finally kicked off, everyone.
Right, as it barrels on. So thank you so much for joining us for the beginning of it. Make sure you go to gttupod.com to check out links for everything that we talked about in the middle of the show. You can find the Patreon there. You can find our Facebook community, all of our social media, and you can also find merch.
Yeah, that's right. GTTUpod.com has got everything you need to the greater world of Guide to the Unknown. But something that has struck me in this particular episode is how much we talked about our past.
Yeah.
GTTUpod.com also has links to every previous episode we've ever done. Episode 51, where we talked about Blair Witch.
Yep.
And I know we got into some of the, if you enjoyed our discussion here, which was somewhat about the industry of slasher and the inspiration of slasher, I think, if I remember correctly, we really did get into some of the behind-the-scenes-ness of Blair Witch Project.
I think so.
Go check that out. That's episode 51. Hit up huntakiller.com/Blair Witch while you're doing that and check out what I've been working on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can check out our discussion of Pamela Voorhees in episode 6, like we talked about. You can find that there. You can go listen to Patreon episode 7 about Nightmare on Elm Street. We definitely have touched on things today that we have discussed in further detail in the past. So
Yeah, without a doubt.
get into it.
So thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We would really appreciate it if you enjoyed this show. Please consider telling some people out there that you liked it. Tell your friends. Write a post, write a tweet.
Tell your Facebook groups.
Yeah, tell your Facebook groups. That's a big one.
Yes.
Other podcasters out there that you like and follow, and you'd like to see us team up with them for a special episode of some sort, reach out to them. Let them know that you would love to see Guide to the Unknown crossover with them.
Yeah, we're super open to it. We've been having a really, really good time talking to other podcasters lately. So if that's something you'd like to see us do, please help us make that happen and reach out to them.
It's been hugely fun.
Yeah.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I love to read them. I usually end up reading one of them on the episode, every episode. So that you always have a chance of ending up mentioned on this show if you write a good one. And if you want to reach out to us, we're online as well.
That's right. I'm at Chillin' Kristen.
I am at The Myth Traveler. So thank you all so much for sharing a bloody good time with us. If I'd said that at the beginning of the episode, 50% of all people would have shut it off.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time, everybody, for more slashy goodness. But until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld go we. Here I go.
There you go, everybody.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Hi, guys.
It was super fun. I'm really excited to be covering this.
Yeah, I am too.
Really excited.
I am too. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a long time coming in a weird
Yeah,
way.
I know.
If anybody has any questions or anything, make sure you post them now. It's hard for us to go back through the chat. So if there's anything you want us to see, go ahead and post it. But maybe we'll hang out for
Absolutely.
just a minute.
Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
They're referring to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Andrea asked, wasn't Texas Chainsaw Massacre initially introduced like Blair Witch as being a true story? Yes, it was. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre itself was based on the murders, or I don't know if they were murders, of Ed Gein. And so arguably that was true, but they also changed so much. It was not based on a true story at all. It was purely a marketing gimmick, but a very effective one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kate said, I usually save the podcast for my work days, but I'm so glad I got to catch this one live. Good. I'm glad you
good.
enjoyed it.
Very glad that you were able to.
Very, very good. And KB loves Freddy.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think, honestly, once I'm done with Friday the 13th, I might jump to...
Go over to Freddy.
I might. Yeah, it's just they pair together. So, obviously, they pair together because of Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah.
But, and in part 9 of Friday the 13th, Freddy's gloved hand reaches out and pulls Jason's mask down into hell.
Ooh. I have also seen Freddy versus Jason, so I guess that's another Friday the 13th movie I've seen.
Yeah, I would count that.
Yeah.
Jason gets most of the kills in that movie.
I don't really remember it that well. I know that Kelly Rowland and Vitamin C are in it, right?
Is Vitamin C in it?
I think she is. Right?
Maybe. I don't.
She's in some horror movie from then. Hold on.
Vitamin C.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I remember really liking Freddy vs. Jason at the time, and now I can't stop thinking about how it has like wire foo in it.
Oh
Remember
yeah,
the early,
yes,
like
yes.
2000s like wire fighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so weird that it's in that.
Very, very strange.
Trying to find.
CBFR asked a question. I'm sure somebody had the answer in here. What famous film is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother known for? Did anybody answer it?
Psycho.
There you go.
I'm thinking of Dracula 2000.
Oh my God. Wasn't that Wes Craven?
Let's see. Yes.
There you go. I forgot that movie existed.
You know what? I would have told you that I forgot that movie existed, but I guess I would have been wrong.
Yeah.
Gerard Butler's in that?
Really?
Weird. Yeah.
That's very weird.
Okay.
I don't know. All
Woo.
right, everybody.
All right, guys. Have a great night. I
Yeah.
hope you enjoyed it. I loved it. Thank you for hanging
I had
out.
so much fun. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for hanging out, everybody. SLASHTOBER has only just begun.
That's right.
There's so much more to discuss.
Mwah,
And make sure that you join us on Sunday. We're going to do a planning session
Yeah.
on patreon.com/GTTU pod.
Yep.
This Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to plan out the rest of the month of episodes. I've already got some fun ideas that I can't wait to talk about. But yeah, you'll be able to get in on that insider session if you join us then.
That's right.
So cool, everybody. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. Hope you have a great rest of your night. We will definitely see you again real soon.
All right. Bye,
All right.
guys.
Bye, everybody. All right, we're off.
Cool.
That was great.
Yeah, totally.